Hello, hello, hello. As you can see, it's just me, and I'm in my office today. I know a lot of the streams I do it from my house because it's early for me in the West Coast. So I have meetings in the morning, and to get up, do meetings, race to the office and stuff, I can't always do it. But today I did, and I'm super, super excited because it makes me feel like y'all know that I am a practicing therapist. See, I have an office that I'm in every day. But anyways, it's not about me, but just to introduce myself. So I'm Christronson. I am an individual with OCD. I suffered from severe obsessive compulsive disorder as well as body dysmorphic disorder. And I did get a diagnosis of major depressive disorder. And then I had anxiety and panic attacks because of those disorders. And so I became full circle and now a therapist. I'm also a lead advocate for the International OCD Foundation, also a vice president of OCD Southern California, and a leader of some of the International OCD Foundation Special Interest Group. And it was just announced. I felt like I couldn't tell anybody, or it would be like the IOCF would take me out in the back. But I'm super excited to announce that I'm a board member of the IOCF. They just announced it, so I feel like I could say it. I'm super excited and thrilled and honored to be a part of the IOCF board. I am going to be at the conference in a week, so I'll know more details, but I'm so, so excited. They just announced it. I'm honored. It's full circle. I always tell everybody I had a really bad treatment for a long time, and it was when my mom found the International OCD Foundation that she found the therapist, Karen Pickett, at the OCD Center of LA, which was the reason I'm here talking to you today and the reason why I'm better. So I'm just excited to announce that for sure. I'm solo today. I don't know if I'm allowed to say why Liz isn't here, but she's coming back. I'm going to let her make an announcement. I don't know if you see on her social media, but I'm going to keep privacy because as a therapist, we're not supposed to ever open up about anything. So I always, even in my real life, don't like to tell things and keep things secret until someone gives me permission. So Liz will be back after the conference. Actually, we're going to do a really cool live stream. I don't know the date. Maybe Skylar could put it in the chat, but it's actually going to be all of us lead and national advocates doing a conference recap. So I think that's the first one that you'll see Liz back. So it always feels weird doing this solo because when you have a partner, we can play off each other. And I really, really do respect and love Liz as a person. So it's fun. But I'm going to handle today solo. So what is Ask the Experts? So the reason we came up with Ask the Experts is we had a lot of live streams that were theme-based, which we still call Lunch and Learn, which is the fourth Wednesday of every month. But we just would always get questions and general questions and felt bad we couldn't answer them for that week's theme. So we just started Ask the Experts, where Liz and I come on and answer your questions from both a lived experience perspective, as well as a clinician's perspective. And so we really want to give you some direction. I know a lot of people are struggling out there. It's hard to always access care and to find help. Plus, with the pandemic and a lot of isolation, people probably don't feel as connected with their communities. So that is that. I do want to make a huge announcement to start. Please, if you still can, come out to the Denver conference. It's not starting this Friday. It's next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But come Thursday, there's a lot of really amazing pre-conference events on Thursday. I always just mentally think of the conference as starting on Thursday because there's so much great stuff to do. So if you can make it, please come out. Besides what you're going to learn, it's community building. Some of the people that I still talk to this day and who understand and get OCD, and we can talk OCD and everything, are people that I've met at the conference. So if you can make it out to the conference, please, please come by. We always have to say this, and I think it's important. So a quick intro before I jump into the questions and everything is the live stream is educational and not intended to replace therapy. So for treatment-related questions, please work with your provider or contact a local clinician. You can use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find-help, and you can locate a trained clinician near you. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you are in a crisis or you are ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911, or go to the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. And then lastly, we want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we're here to support one another. And note that this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and it is being recorded. I also have a lot of other fun announcements, but those are going to come at the end, so stick around. Before I get started, I want to let everybody know this is your live stream. I'm just here to support y'all. So to make this work, I want you to feel comfortable and feel free to ask questions. We do have some pre-submitted questions, so I'll make sure to get to those as well. Oh, there's a lot. Okay, I will try to make all of this work today. But please, please, please ask questions, make comments, interact with each other in the chat. I always like to hear where you're from, who you're here supporting. It's always good to see people and know where they're coming from. And just definitely, you know, want everybody to feel like they can ask a question or make a comment. Also, I always like to have a topic since Liz isn't here, so I don't have someone to play off of. So a topic to play off with all, because I feel like I'm sitting in a room with everybody watching this live. And then you can always, don't forget, you can always watch the recording back on IOCDF's social media. But a question I want to ask everybody is, what feels the most alone about having OCD? So just to kind of kick off the conversation in the chat, what makes you feel most alone about having OCD? I would say for me, I almost felt like I was living a second world. Like I had my very public facing world. And as I got better with treatment, I was able to start to hold it together and go out in public, because I was housebound for about 3 years. And I was able to sort of like go through the motion of going to a grocery store or finally getting a haircut or something like that. But I always felt like I was just kind of holding it together. And once everybody was gone and I would get into my obsessions, my compulsions, and my rituals, it was like that was almost like the second world that I was kind of living. So I didn't feel like I could be authentic with people. I didn't feel like I was really connecting with people and people really knew who I was. So that's why I love the OCD community and feeling connected, and why we do these live streams. So I want to hear from everybody, what makes you feel most alone about OCD? Hi, Dave. It's good to see everybody. Some people are saying hi, like Dana. It's always good to see Dana Uran and Phyllis Duarte and Valerie Andrews, who I can't wait to see in person at the conference. We have Kylie Nash, who is from Utah. Dave, thank you so much for the congratulations. That really means a lot. We have Oklahoma in the house. We have Michigan. Hi, Patricia. It's good to see you. Diana is supporting her adult son in Dallas. It's coming to the conference, so please come and say hi. I promise I'm not that awkward and weird. My mom's going to be there, my sister too, so I'm really excited. Kylie says not being able to hang around family and friends is one of the lonely parts of having OCD. I agree 1,000%. Just not being able, there were so many times I made up excuses why I couldn't hang out with somebody or go somewhere. So that is absolutely super alone. Diane, definitely as a loved one, watching your loved one suffer and not being able to feel like you could stop it. I know that's really hard. My mom talks about that. Marissa is from Chicago. And then Patricia, yeah, OCD creating a lie that nobody likes them. So there's a lot of different things. So I'm going to jump into, I'm going to first do 2 of the pre-submitted questions and then jump into some of the live questions I already see coming. As always, you can always go to iocdf.org/peace of mind to submit a topic for a lunch and learn or a pre-submitted question, or you can go on IOCDF social media and ask a question. So someone pre-submitted question, this is from Marissa, said, I'm in an OCD and anxiety support group that I found to be more triggering than I expected. What are your thoughts on continuing to participate in this support group? So what I would first ask you, Marissa, if I was working with you, is do you feel ready? And when I say that, we're never going to feel, let me definitely put like a little asterisk, we're never going to feel fully ready to do anything when it comes to OCD. OCD wants us to never try anything new, because remember, anything new that comes along is unpredictable. It feels different. We don't know what's going on. And so anything new is going to be triggering. I also think that sometimes we rush too much with the ERP. And I always think of the exposure response prevention. We've got to be learning. That's the whole point of the treatment, is to start to learn that, hey, wait a second, OCD is creating lies. It's telling me false truths. I'm living in sort of this world that isn't true. I have so much doubt. This isn't true. So if you go to the group and completely melt down and feel like it's too difficult, what I would work on with you is like, is there a step that we can work up towards that? So maybe is there like a virtual group that you could join and listen but not talk, or come up with that. But if you and your clinician do feel like you're ready, I know it's really hard to think this way, but what really helped me get better and what helps clients get better is when you start to think of those triggers as not so negative. I like to reframe how we think about OCD. So here's a support group. the reason you first attended the support group, Marissa, is because you absolutely want a community. You want to feel like you're not alone. You want to feel like people are there that get it. And I can tell you, like, I think of this almost as like a group of people that are like-minded, getting support on these streams. So the thing is, that's kind of your goal, right? Like, that's your dream, that's your passion. And I think of OCD jumping in front of you and coming up with 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't do this group. And I don't know about you, but I got fed up of listening to OCD and not being able to live like my best life because of OCD. And I really started to tap into the things that are important in my values. And you value being in a support group. So we don't want to look at the triggers as necessarily a bad thing. What a trigger really is your brain is telling you a what if. It's creating a potentially bad scenario. Nothing bad is happening. Nothing is currently dangerous, but your brain is kind of creating and putting something in this dangerous category. And what we want to do, because your goal and your mindset is to get to that support group to get support, is to go to that group and to focus more on getting the support and less on the trigger. So you can actually use that triggers in therapy of how you overcome it. So for instance, if somebody talks about something that's triggering, if your automatic response is to tune out the group, get in your head and ruminate and fixate on it, that's a compulsion. You know, you're no longer focusing on the group, which is the reason you came there in the first place. And instead, you're focusing on that compulsion, and your brain is coming up with a scenario that may happen and is asking you currently to fix a situation that hasn't occurred yet. So what you would want to do is say, look, I'm going to choose not to engage in that compulsive rumination. I'm going to focus my attention on who's speaking. I'm going to listen. I'm going to make sure my body language is open, and I'm going to engage in the group. I'm going to kind of choose the opposite reaction that OCD wants. OCD is going to stay in your background and kind of bother you and trigger you, etc. But the good thing is we get to choose how we respond to our thoughts. If we want to tune the group out, focus on the thoughts, it's going to be triggering and you're not going to want to come back. If instead you hear the thoughts, choose not to engage, choose to focus your attention out and really engage in the group, meet people, stay after, laugh, exchange numbers, pretty soon you're going to start having a positive association with the group. So I would really work on staying with the group. Support groups are great. And don't ever let OCD prevent or fear prevent you from doing something amazing. All right, I'm going to do another pre-submitted and then go back to live. So the next question is, can avoidance of getting medical help be a compulsion? So Shania says, I'm avoiding going to a doctor to get a CT scan that was recommended. Absolutely. So sometimes when you have health anxiety, health OCD, it's tricky because sometimes, like, here's an example, real case scenario. So a lot of times I work with clients who are really, really afraid of going to the doctor after they have sex. So let's say they're in a relationship, they have romantic relations with their partner, and then they're triggered. What if I got an STI? So it's a compulsion to not go because they're afraid that they're going to go and get the answer, and that triggers them. But it's also a compulsion to go because they want to get the answer right away, right? So sometimes with OCD, it's tricky. It's like avoiding a CT scan can be the compulsion, or going can be the compulsion. So that's where we want to ask ourselves, like, what is the motive behind our decision? So from your question, Shania, it sounds like you're choosing not to go to the scan because of fear. So once again, I like to always kind of frame it like, do we want to let fear dictate our lives? Do we want our life's direction to be based out of being frightened? And the thing about OCD is these are never current situations that are dangerous. These are what if situations. And one thing that OCD does is it doesn't have trust in your future self. So what I mean by that is, let's say you go to that CT scan and you do get really triggered, and it is a really, really hard experience. Shania, trust your future self that you'll be able to cope, you'll be able to handle, you'll be able to push through, and you'll be able to get that scan because it sounds like you need it because a doctor, recommended it. So what I would do is just take like that first step, set up the appointment. And then whether it's with your therapist or through the workbook that you're doing or however you're fighting back against the OCD, really practice making sure that you're not sitting in that kind of rumination cycle every single day until the appointment. Trust your future self that when you get to that hospital to get that CT scan, you'll be able to handle it. And always remember, like, there is fake danger with getting a CT scan according to OCD, but there's real danger in preventing medical help. So OCD is giving you a what if scenario, whereas going and getting that scan avoiding that scan is actually a potentially dangerous situation. So Hopefully that's helpful. Kylie Nash, so you are asking about BDD, body dysmorphic disorder at um oh, so bad at 11:12, I think, Skylar your time. I'm always on the West Coast, so I'm always like, I know Skylar's on the East, and she's the one that puts the questions up, so I'm always kind of trying to change times. So Kylie asks, I wanted to get here early in hopes to get my question answered. I suffer from severe body dysmorphic disorder. How do I stop the compulsions that make me feel terrible, but I feel like I can't resist them? I'll answer part one, and then there's a part two, and I'm going to get to both parts because you got here early. So first and foremost, Kylie, and for everybody watching, what is body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD? It's an OCD-related disorder, meaning it's under the category of OCD, and it's where an individual sees a perceived flaw or flaws in their appearance that nobody else can see. So that would be sort of like if you think of anorexia, where people will look in the mirror and think that they're overweight, and when we look at them, they aren't overweight, or in fact they're severely underweight. That would be an example of anorexia, but that same kind of concept for BDD. They look in the mirror and they see either, it's usually neck up, like a bit, their nose is too big, or their ears stick out, or their jawline isn't strong enough, or they have acne. But when everybody else looks, either they don't see it, or it's so minute that they can't even notice unless they get close and fixate. But to the individuals with BDD, because we stare at pictures and mirrors and we zoom in on the picture, we get really close to the mirror and then fixate on that flaw that we see for hours, it blows it up and makes it big. So to answer your first part of your question, Kylie, is how do I stop the compulsions? So response prevention is the biggest important thing I feel with BDD, because a lot of our BDD is around our checking. So some of the compulsions that are common is mirror checking, videotaping and taking pictures of yourself at different angles and looking at them, hiding out in the house, only leaving when it's dim lighting or nighttime, camouflaging with clothes, asking people reassurance. These are some of those common things we see in BDD. And so what you want to recognize is trying to go from everything to nothing is really difficult. So an example is, let's say you're trying to cut out mirror checking. If you're mirror checking 50 times a day, going to zero is pretty difficult. You're going to find yourself struggling and maybe not want to do it. So what I would say is, if it's 50, try to go down to 40, try to reduce it. What you have to recognize with BDD is it's a cycle. Looking in the mirror isn't going to make you feel better, because you're not going into the mirror with the idea of an objective observance. So there's something called perceptual retraining in BDD. It's learning how to look in a mirror or at a picture in a very objective way. That's not what you're doing. You're getting into the mirror, your eyes are zooming into the body part you don't like, you're getting close and you're judging it. So going into the mirror like that every single time is only going to end up with a negative feeling, a negative sensation. You're going to start having doubt, like, how does my nose look? Do other people think it's big? You're going to create this whole story where everybody's staring at your nose and laughing at you and think you look ugly. And it's going to keep you in your house, isolated, depressed, and unhappy. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce to try to get to use that mirror only when necessary. If you're brushing your teeth, combing your hair, if you're trying on a shirt at the store, look at the shirt. Don't look at your face and judge. So you want to try with reduction. The other thing that helps sometimes is putting it off. So let's say you have the urge to open up your phone and look at an old picture to compare your appearance now from when it was 3 months ago to kind of see what happened. Try to delay. If it's 11 a.m., try to go to 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. The second part of your question is, you feel like people are lying to you to say that you look fine because they're family and obligated to tell me those things. So I never know what to believe, and I think about it all the time. So Kylie, I was a huge reassurance seeker, and it doesn't work. Because if they say something, let's say it's not a family member, let's say it's a friend or somebody that you trust, you're going to feel high for a couple minutes, maybe an hour, and then you're going to go right back to seeking reassurance because it's temporary. Also, you never believe anybody anyways. It just makes us feel worse. So I always tell people, first and foremost, people aren't as nice as we sometimes give them credit for. I think with BDD, we think that everybody would just tell us we look great all the time. I don't think people would be harsh or rude, but if there was something dramatically wrong with you, your appearance, like how we think in BDD, somebody in your family may just say, hey, no, I see what you're seeing, etc. I don't think your family would lie to you in the way that BDD is trying to con you into believing. So what I would say is really reduce asking about reassurance, because you're not believing it anyways, and it's going to get you frustrated and feel like people are lying. What you want to remember too is the point of treatment is not to figure out a way to start not feeling like you have a flaw and loving your appearance, because that's the whole appearance trap that BDD puts you in. It's to start to recognize, like, what is BDD saying you can't engage in? Dating, going to the mall, getting a job, etc. And it's having us challenge that belief that you can't do those things because of your appearance. And it's really working to get you re-engaged in life so that you can see that you can get into life and people will like you and treat you well despite how you feel about your appearance. As you start to challenge those irrational beliefs, and as you start to change the behaviors, you'll notice that you're not reinforcing this idea that your appearance is off, and you'll actually start to get to a point with relief. So I know I can't give treatment over here, but I hope that was enough to really, really help you kind of just get some general ideas. So hopefully that was helpful. The next question is at 12:05, mathematical kid. Stay in school and love math. I love it. I'm good at math. I'm not good at some subjects, but math I'm good at. At 12:05 said, what kind of medicine should I take? So what I'm going to ask Skylar to do is, in the chat, there's a really good article on the IOCDF website that I live by. It is from Michael Janicki. I just always just put in IOCDF medications and it always pops up. So we'll put that in the chat for you, mathematical kid. What I can say, because I'm not a psychiatrist, I can't prescribe medication, read the article, but SSRIs like a Prozac, Luvox, Lexapro, Zoloft, those are the first line treatments for OCD. And so it's an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. The best way I can describe that is when two of your neurons talk to each other, the first neuron doesn't have enough serotonin to make enough of a message. And so what the medication does is it prevents this neuron from regrouping that serotonin. So the serotonin comes out and does a little bit more messaging. So this neuron understands the message and moves on. It's kind of like if your soccer team was down a player, everybody has to step up and work harder. And what happens, because I was on an SSRI for my own treatment, I'm not on it anymore, but I was, what you start to experience is the thoughts are less frequent, they're less intense, they're less strong, and you feel like you can do the treatment, focus, and re-engage in life. So definitely check out that article. The second thing that I want Skylar to put up is we just recently did an Ask the Experts with a psychiatrist. And so we answered medication-based questions for an hour. So please, please, please watch that. You can watch it on youtube.com/IOCDF. Or Skylar can put the link in. And then we're definitely going to have another psychiatrist come back so we can get more psychiatrist-based questions. But yes, if you feel like medication would help, definitely see a psychiatrist, a prescriber, and get some information. But that's usually what people start with. All right, so we have another, I'll do another live question and then go back. So we have Grace at 12:07 says, what are some ideas people have in regards to getting more involved in local OCD advocacy? There isn't an OCD affiliate or organization in Southeast Michigan where I live, and I'm not a clinician, but I still want to get involved on a larger scale to help the community, but don't know if or where to start. The first thing I'll say is I believe we're doing a talk at the in-person conference about this. And I think one at the virtual conference as well. So if you can make either conference, we're going to talk about advocacy, how to get involved, and things like that. I would say the first thing is a lot of the affiliates actually get started from people that aren't clinicians. And I'm on the board of OCD Southern California, and we do obviously have clinicians, but we have some people that aren't, some people that have OCD, a couple parents of OCD. So don't think you have to be a clinician to get started. The best thing to do would be to email info@iocdf.org and just ask about starting an affiliate. I know they have a whole affiliate packet that helps you get one started, but let's say that's just too overwhelming. Let's say an affiliate isn't in your future right now. Totally understand, because it's a pretty big undertaking and you'd want to get some people to help out. What I would say instead is to link up with a local either clinician or like a mental health organization like the National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is NAMI. And I know that a lot of them are looking for, sometimes a clinician wants like a support group that somebody who has OCD and has gotten better can be involved in, and you can help out that way. A lot of times showing up to like different mental health walks or organizations, even getting like a booth where you have OCD resources. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's hard because a lot of it's through the affiliate, but we've gone out and talked to local clinicians to educate them on OCD. We've gone to schools and educated them. We've gone to mental health walks, mental health conferences, events in the local area. We've done local interviews and blog posts. One thing you could always do if you're open to it is share your story. See if there's an OCD blog. I know the IOCF has one. We have one at OCD Southern California, so you could share your story. But see if there's a nonprofit mental health organization, because the good thing is, if I would still email the IOCDF about how to start an affiliate, because it's not as hard as you think. And I'm sure they've reached people who have reached out that have wanted to start an affiliate, but just don't know who to help, or who to contact, or how to get help. So there might already be people interested. But the next thing you could do is find like a nonprofit mental health organization that's already up and running, because like our local NAMIs don't have any OCD resources. So when we go to those events, we're sometimes the only OCD resource there, and you could be that as well. So hopefully that is a little bit helpful, but I would definitely email the IOCDF and ask them about it. I think that would be a great place to start. They could talk to you about, particularly how to start. So that might be great. Diane says, thank you for sharing your story. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for being here. That's so sweet. Jana says the most kind of alone part about having OCD is not understanding what OCD is and how to feel, and then also avoid going out with friends and family. I definitely think that as well. Grace talks about struggles in social situations that makes the anxiety high, and stigma. So definitely there. I'm going to put this point up because I think sometimes this gets misunderstood. So Leanne at 1209 says, in 2020, I had crippling forms of OCD with meds, family, and therapy. I finally started getting my acceptance journey. It will get better. Hang in there. Acceptance is an agreement. So first and foremost, what I want to say is thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing that and giving people hope, because Liz and I aren't the only two people that have gotten better from OCD. There's a lot of us. So it's good to hear from your story. What I want to talk about is acceptance, because I think people get so stuck on this. Like, what is acceptance? What is acceptance? The example I always give my clients is I accept that I pay taxes every year. I hate it. Don't want to pay taxes. I don't think anybody likes paying taxes. I do like some of the things taxes gives us, roads and etc., but nobody loves it. Like, nobody wakes up the day of having to pay taxes and is like, yes, this is my favorite day of the year. But what does acceptance mean? Does it mean that I'm loving it? I'm agreeing with it? I'm happy about it? Of course not. Acceptance is I'm choosing to do nothing. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to send out resources. I'm not going to spend time on it. I'm not going to do any of that stuff, because it just is. So when we talk about kind of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which is an adjunct treatment to exposure response prevention, what is acceptance? And so what acceptance would look like, for instance, is, let's say your OCD is around hit or run. When we say, okay, accept the doubt that you're going to have, because you're going to have some doubt that you might hit someone, because it is something that potentially is logical. That does happen, unfortunately. We can be as safe as we want to be, and somebody could run out in front of us. A car could jump out in front of us. We could get distracted, right? That could happen. If a therapist says accept that, the first thought people have is, I don't want to accept that. I don't want to accept that I'm going to get in a car accident. I'm going to hit someone. It's going to be terrible, etc. I don't want to accept that. That's not what your therapist is asking you to do. Obviously, you're going to do a lot of work before you get to that acceptance point. So recognizing how much OCD is building this catastrophic outcome, when it's more likely that maybe you might get in a wreck. The likelihood that you're going to cause a 50-car pileup and kill half of your city is a little dramatic. OCD tends to be over dramatic and build worst case, even though there's no facts or no probability of that happening. But let's say you do the work with your therapist and you get to the point that you recognize, okay, realistically, if I get in the car, there is a potential that I may hit someone. I've gotten over the fact that I wouldn't know, because the likely that I'd hit somebody or hit a car and not know is OCD. But I'm still afraid that I may get in the car and get in a car accident. I can't tell you that's not going to happen. I can tell you there's certain things you can do to be less likely for that to happen. Don't drive at 2 a.m. Pay attention. Don't be a distracted driver. At the end of the day, it could still happen. All of us choose to accept the fact that if we get in the car, there may be a car accident that we're involved in. The difference is people without OCD don't think about it. They've already kind of weighed the pros and cons subconsciously and recognize, like, hey, I got to get around. I'm willing to do it. I'm going to be safe. It's the best I can do. Us with OCD want to figure out a way to get 0% probability of that happening. So instead of acceptance, if you're getting stuck on that word, think of the word tolerate. You got to just tolerate that there's a chance. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen. It doesn't even mean it may happen. But the bottom line is it is something that could occur. But you have certain things you can do. That's your responsibility when you drive. And everything else, you got to just let go. You can't control everything in life. When we start to learn that, it makes life a lot better. Plus, I always want to remind you, you got to trust yourself. I think OCD forever makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us doubt our thoughts, our feelings, our choices. Trust yourself that when you drive, you are going to do what you can to be a safe driver. I think OCD builds the story that you're going to be erratic and, hurt half of your city. So thanks for that point, Leanne. All eyes on P on YouTube. Sorry, I always adjust my collar, and somebody asked me once if it was a compulsion. It's not. I just have broad shoulders and a normal neck, so I just shaved and it keeps rubbing on my neck and itching. So hopefully it's not like a mic in your ear. All eyes on P says, can you address some of the things that you've heard about compulsive staring amongst your colleagues? So Dr. Grayson has been the first person I've heard really talk about it, and because we are all friends in here, I will be honest with you all. That was definitely something that I struggled with. I actually, Dr. Grayson did, I think, like a study, and I was anonymous in it, but I don't care if people know. But I put out there, honestly, my compulsive staring, and it's difficult because it's not like you have this intrusive thought and then you stare. I mean, that wasn't my experience, and I'd be interested to hear yours. All eyes on P. For me, what it was is like, I would just be kind of sitting there, and like my fear was, what if I start staring at somebody's, like, an uncomfortable position, like private area, or even sometimes not that, like what if I just stare at someone awkwardly? And so the mistake I made, because we always make this mistake with OCD, is I took that thought at face value. I just totally accepted that thought like it was real. And so when I would be in public, I would really try to not stare. What happens when you try to avoid something? You consciously or subconsciously, like, then go to the place that you don't want to look. So then it became that cycle that we know well with OCD. So for me, what worked is I was just like, okay, when I look at people, I normally make eye contact, and I don't have control where my eyes go. I think that was part of my trigger as well. Is like, if you ever notice when you're talking to somebody, you don't just stare like I am at the camera right now. You kind of look around. And my fear is, what if I looked around at a place I didn't want to look at? And so what I started doing is focusing on eye contact. And then I was like, you know what? Wherever else my eyes go, they go. And the worst case that I could imagine is somebody's going to ask me, like, are you staring at me? Are you staring at an uncomfortable place? And confront me. And I'd have to deal with it then. And I have to just trust that future Chris would be able to say, like, no, there was nothing intensive. I was just kind of looking around. I apologize if you're uncomfortable, and move on. What happened, and what I realized, is it wasn't so much that the staring was bugging me. It was more so the energy and freaking out that I put on it. I was like, I don't want to be in public. I don't want people to think I'm weird or awkward and stare. And so I got to a point where I recognized, like, the way that I was responding was actually the problem, because I would respond like it was the worst case thing in the world. So every time I was around people, my brain freaked out, and then I felt like I was out of control. So once I got to a point where I really started to just say, look, my eyes are going to go where they go, and it is what it is, it reduced. I will say also, lastly, definitely, I don't have the link on top, but I know that there's been articles about it, but Dr. Grayson has been doing some stuff. I think there's even a past live stream on compulsive staring. So definitely go to YouTube, IOCDF on YouTube, and type in under the YouTube part, compulsive staring, because I think that one is, oh, Skyla put in the link. So Skyla's already ahead of me. So make sure you definitely respond or watch that, is what I meant to say. All right, so the next question that we have is, let's see. Okay, somebody asked, do you feel ERP is as effective in a virtual setting? So this is Angela asked, this is a pre-submitted question. I want to get to some of those too. Do you think ERP is as effective in a virtual setting? I don't know if we're going to be able to put this in the chat, Skyla. I don't have, what I'm guessing this person is saying is like virtual reality. I just personally don't have it here at my office. The reason I want, we'll have to probably get back to you, is I know that there are a couple different treatment centers that are using like virtual reality. And if I'm totally butchering your question, because it's straight to the point, Angela, you could always re-ask it, but this is what I'm guessing that you're saying. There are some clinicians that are using virtual reality in their treatment. So I've seen people post about it and they found that they have found it helpful. What I have done, it was kind of makeshift, but I had a client, it was more of a phobia and less OCD. There's a little bit of OCD around it, but more of a phobia of roller coasters. And there's a place called the Irvine Spectrum by my office, and they have a VR place, and you can go on virtual roller coasters. And that helped them kind of work up the courage to go on like a kiddie coaster and then an adult coaster and stuff. The other one is there's actually a training on how to become a pilot. Like there's a pilot school by my office, and I had a client that had the fear of going flying. And so luckily that school was like off season and you could pay for like a day rate to go and to be on that, and so that helped the client kind of build up confidence. So I've seen it helpful in that little part. I don't have the research off the top of my head, but there's definitely somebody that treatment centers that use it, so I'd look into it. But so far I've heard good things, because it kind of can put you in that situation. Remember, the whole point of treatment is to respond to your discomfort differently. So whether it's triggering words or a narrative or a video or a place, a location, a person, a thing that brings up that fear, that doubt, that discomfort, the treatment is really how are you responding to your thoughts and feelings. So if you're finding yourself triggered by doing therapy in a virtual setting and you respond differently, awesome. That's so important. At 12:10, Gentile asked, do you think it's better to respond differently to the thoughts using sarcasm or completely ignoring them? I would say first what helps, Gentile, is to start to recognize like what are your thoughts coming from, to kind of take a step back and say like what are these thoughts doing? I would say the thoughts are what if potential fears. Think of it like this: your brain and your body's whole sole purpose is to keep you alive. That's why we eat, get energy, digest, sleep, have arms to protect us. Our brain and our body wants to keep us safe. So in the brain, we have these two little almond shaped things called our amygdala, and they are good when used normal, like in somebody without OCD, because they basically warn you. They say, hey, you know what? This is dangerous. Don't cross a street. It looks kind of shady over there. Keep on this. Stay in the, this is highly lit. Or, hey, let's not drive off road. It looks dangerous. Like that part of the brain is keeping you safe. The problem in OCD is those are overactive. So we're constantly being told things are dangerous. The difference for people without OCD is usually that danger comes when they're in the danger. They're not worried like, what if I go to the movies tonight and there's a shooting? Or what if I hit somebody with my car? The average person is more so in fear in that moment. They're freaking out. It's like, oh my God, I see my kid drowning. I hear their screams, run, jump in the pool, pick up the kid and take them out. Somebody with OCD might not even have kids yet and be thinking, what if my kid's drowned? Because they just watched a special on a child that drowned, right? And so we make the mistake as having these thoughts come in and we take them for face value and say, well, I had the thought, it must be true. So the treatment is not to eradicate thoughts, thought stop, replace thoughts, right? The treatment is to figure out how am I going to respond to these thoughts differently. So there's different ways to do it. There's a really good article. I wish I could like type everything, but I have Skyla. Maybe Skyla will find it. There's a good article by John Hirschfield, and he writes, I think, 4 different ways that he's found effective for clients to respond to different thoughts. So he gives a couple different ways that you could respond that are all effective. So if Skyla finds it and puts in the chat, awesome. If not, just Google John Hirschfield, respond to thoughts, or 4 responses to thoughts. What I think, to answer your question, Gentile, is for me, it was different phases. Like in the beginning, it was a lot more cognitive work and understanding what was going on. And so I'd go to my therapist and say, okay, I just had a thought that, I looked and the elevator's old going up to your office. And I just had a thought, like, what if the elevator was to crash and da da da. So in the beginning, it was sort of like recognizing what was going on. Okay, you have an overestimation of danger, an overestimation of consequence, catastrophizing, all of that. But then we moved on to getting to a point where it's like, what if you started just being indifferent to the thoughts? So OCD provides you with a thought, and instead of grabbing that thought and engaging and staring at it and fixating on it, what if you just kind of noticed the thought was there and chose to do nothing about it? Then sometimes for me, what helped is like over dramatizing the thought. So let's say like OCD was going to tell me like, hey, Chris, when you drive home today, you're going to hit somebody with your car. sometimes I like to play back with a thought. I'm like, I'm not just going to hit one person with a car. What if I hit 50 people with a car and I'm just ramming into people, and I go into a shopping center, I'm just hitting people like it's GT, and I would over dramatize it sometimes, and it just started seeming foolish and silly. Sarcasm works sometimes. I saw a talk on OCD once that you can't have humor and fear at the same time because it like competes with each other. So sometimes using humor and sarcasm worked. I know I would use it sometimes, like when I found myself uh, like using a lot of Tide, for instance, for my contamination. I would joke, as I was working on reducing it, I would joke that the CEO of Tide is like sending 8 kids to college because of me, simply. So just sometimes using humor worked. I think towards the end, and where I got to now is like I don't even like give it an iota of energy. Sometimes I cuss at it, which I'm not going to say out loud on here, but sometimes it was a good fu to the thought and moved on. And so I realized the less and less I gave it attention, the less it bothered me. So that helps a lot of people. Grace, you're going to the conference. Please, please, please come up and say hi. It would be really, really good to see you. It would be awesome. And I will be at the virtual conference as well. So Skyla put some good resources in the chat for body dysmorphic disorder. So I think that's awesome. Deepak at 1217. Okay, I'm way behind in questions, so I'm going to try to catch up. When my therapist encourages me not to respond to thoughts, I feel empowered, but more effort, because as time passes by, my efforts get reduced and I end up responding to them. How should I stay empowered? What I would say, Deepak, is what's really helpful is don't even start. I think that this goes for everybody watching. I know it's harder said than done, but what I found is when I didn't even allow myself to start responding to thoughts or a compulsion or a behavior, it was so much easier, because once I started giving in, I was like digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper, and it was harder to get out of it. So if you can, Deepak, when OCD starts that conversation, not even engaging with that conversation is going to be your best bet, because once you start engaging, OCD is like, oh, Deepak wants to talk, and sits down with you and pulls up a chair and has a conversation. When it comes to not responding to the thoughts, you got to remember that these thoughts are not even based in reality and fact. If they were, we would be the safest people with OCD. Nothing bad would ever happen. We'd almost be like superheroes who can predict danger and prevent danger from happening before it does. But it's not helping us. Most of us fall to depression, isolation, aggravation, etc. And so what I feel the treatment does is it teaches you how to have a different relationship with your thoughts. Our previous relationship with thoughts is either we have to listen to every single one, we have to respond, we have to engage, we have to change what we're doing. Instead, it's really like I get to have an opportunity to respond differently. So OCD just told me I should go back to the house and check, my hair straightener to see if my house is burning down. Thank you for the suggestion, OCD. I'm going to choose not to do anything about it or engage, and I'm choosing to move on. That doesn't mean OCD is going to stop talking to you, but if you don't engage with it, it starts to become background noise. Or I think of it as like your roommate left the TV on downstairs, and it's a little annoying, but you can focus more on what you're doing and forget the TV's even on. So what I would say, Deepak, is in session, practice bringing up certain things that trigger the thoughts. And then in front of your therapist, practice not engaging, and then recreate that on your own throughout the day in between sessions so that you feel like you're the one in charge and you're the one handling it. So hopefully that's helpful. At 1218, Tanya, I'm going to butcher everybody's name because my name's bland like vanilla ice cream, Chris. So I'm not as cool as everybody else with cool names. You called me sir. Thank you. Obsessions seem real to me that I'm not able to study. I do magnifying threat in my mind because a courtroom for contrasting thoughts. So it sounds like the obsessions feel so real. There's a couple reasons your obsessions feel so real. First and foremost, I feel like individuals with OCD, we have really active imaginations, and I feel like we have really intense heightened emotions. There's actually some research that shows that individuals with OCD have emotional dysregulation, meaning that our emotions are high, low than the average person. So when we have this whole kind of like fantasy fear world, this imagination that OCD builds for us, and we start to believe it, and then our emotions are intense, suddenly a thought feels real. What I always tell people is OCD only works on the quote unquote like negative side. It never works on the positive side. Because I'm sure if you deliberately thought about yourself living in a mansion, having a beautiful fountain in the front, having an elevator, and then opened your eyes, you wouldn't feel like it's real. But for some reason, we only listen to the thoughts that are negative, are harmful, are dangerous. And so, what I like to work with clients and what I think is important treatment is to start to kind of break that thought action fusion and to learn that thoughts are just simply thoughts. You can have any thought on the planet. It's uncomfortable. We don't deliberately want to have negative thoughts, but that doesn't mean a thought is reality. And so that's part of what the exposure work does is the response prevention component is to prevent yourself from backing these thoughts up with action. If I think my water has been poisoned, which was a fear of mine, and I don't drink it, that thought is no longer just a thought. That thought is a welcomed worry, and our brain is going to reward us for throwing the drink away and not getting poisoned and dying. So you got to recognize how your response to the thoughts is actually what's encouraging it to stick around. And so by choosing instead to drink the water, because that's a value of mine, is to be hydrated and to not throw things away, you'll start to break that belief. So absolutely. Leanne says, does insurance fuel the OCD loop? Absolutely. Here's my analogy on why reassurance doesn't work. Imagine you woken up in the middle of the night because someone kicks down your door. You come out, you're half asleep. You see your family come out, and it's a bunch of SWAT team. And if you're international and there's not SWAT team, think of like a bunch of police with like guns and flashlights, right? And they keep going from room to room in your house yelling, clear, 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 clear. And then you're all in the living room, and the head guy goes, all right, we just checked everything in your house. Everything's clear. It's safe. You could go back to sleep and then leave. You are not going to just go back to bed and be like, oh, well, everything's safe. You're going to be freaking out. You're going to call the police station. What the heck just happened? What danger? You're going to go outside. You're going to look at your neighbors. So the reason reassurance doesn't help is it tells your brain there is something that you are safe from momentarily, but it's a big danger that you have to be on the lookout at all times. That's why reassurance does not help. So that's why we got to make sure not to do it. You don't have to put this question up. I'll answer it really quickly. Can you have BDD without having an eating disorder? Absolutely. It is a high comorbidity. There are a lot of people that do have eating disorders and body dysmorphic disorder, but typically BDD is neck up. So it's not always about like food. It's more so about wanting to get plastic surgery to change the appearance of your face. And then Kylie said that it was helpful. So Kylie, I'm so glad that it was helpful for you answering the question about BDD. So I'm glad that's really, really helpful. Nikki asks, how do you manage so well, Chris, without being on an SSRI? I can't imagine being okay without them. So what I did, and I always want to preface it, this was my medication journey. This is not the medication journey. Medication is so much different for everyone. When I got to a point, so when I was done with treatment, I wasn't cured. Not that there is a cure, but I think sometimes people think that the last day of treatment means there's no OCD. I still had OCD. I just knew how to respond to it. So I was working at a gym, a lot of triggers. There was a lot of contamination triggers, touching dirty towels, touching dirty equipment. There was harm triggers. I always worried that I was going to re-rack weights incorrectly and they would fall on someone and injure them. I always thought I was going to leave the gym unlocked and they're going to break in and get fired. Animal shelter, I was worried I was going to get bitten. I was going to do something to accidentally harm the pet. I was going to get contaminated and stuff. So there was a lot of triggers. But the great thing is, like, living in life, I was able to just live by my values. I was able to show up to work each day and response prevention, not give in, right? When it got to a point, I'd say 2 or 3 years after treatment was when I really started to see OCD on the decline. And I would meet with my psychiatrist and we'd have nothing to talk about. It would be like, the whole session, I was just like telling him how great things were and stuff like that. And then what happened was after just that for a while, my psychiatrist said, well, do you want to try going off the medication? It's been like a year or 2 years of really not experiencing much OCD. And I said, yeah, let's try it. So I made sure that all my other stuff was healthy. I was working out, friends, journaling, structure, right, to kind of help with that. But I tapered down, and after about 6 months, I went off medication, and there wasn't like intrusive thoughts that popped out, etc. And I've been able to stay off medication ever since. I have no stigma around meds. If OCD ever came back and kicked my butt, I'd get right back on medication because it was helpful. And I think that's why Nikki is just really making sure you work with your psychiatrist. There's some people that might not need to be it on life. I think it's a lot to do with like brain chemistry and things like that. So it doesn't mean that I'm a better like I went through therapy better or I'm stronger. It probably has a lot to do with brain chemistry. So I don't want people to ever think that I'm more better off because I'm not on meds. I never think that at all. And in fact, like I said, if I needed to go back on medication, I would. In fact, I went into a deep depression about a year after my treatment because I felt so behind in life and went back on meds. And then once I kind of got back into life and felt good, I went off of it again. So all right, so Jenna asks at 12:29, what about fears of derealization or detaching from reality? My OCD keeps telling me, what if you're living a lie? What if the things and people around you are not real? How to overcome it? So it sounds like this is a little existentialism OCD. What I'd say about derealization and depersonalization, those are two dissociative disorders that a lot of people with OCD or trauma or both experience. So depersonalization is when the world around you starts to feel fake. Sometimes things can feel bigger than they should or smaller, or things just don't feel like they are real. Like it just people don't feel connected with their reality. Derealization is when you don't feel connected with yourself. You feel like you're watching yourself through a TV screen or you're like floating from your body, etc. The good news is the treatment is similar to OCD in the sense that you don't want to try to get back into reality, because the harder that you try to reconnect with your surroundings, the more you feel panicked and the more you're going to disassociate, because it's almost a defense mechanism. So there are some grounding techniques that can be helpful, etc., but not in like a panicked way that usually our fear has us. As for the second part, which sounds a little bit like existentialism OCD, you'd want to ask yourself, like, what are you doing differently every day because of this fear? Is your compulsions mostly in your head? So are you consistently trying to figure out if you're real and if life is real? Well, the thing is, everybody else just accepts that it is. So if you're in your head questioning that questioning, that doubt, that's going to make you even more disconnected from everything, because when we're in our heads, we're not connected with our surroundings. That's why mindfulness, like touching, using things with your senses, is so helpful. This bottle feels cold. It kind of snaps us back to reality. But if you're tuning your reality out in your head, trying to figure out if everybody's real, you're going to feel disconnected with people and things around you, which is going to then make it easier to believe OCD's lie, which is things and people aren't real. So for this is what I really encourage people to do is engagement. Engage with people, go to Starbucks, talk to the person, interact with them, start conversation. When the doubt comes in and is like, well, why are you doing this? This isn't even real. It's like, well, if I'm going to be living in this fake world, I might as well enjoy it. I might as well go to the movies and hang out with friends, etc. And what you're teaching your brain is, just because I hear that thought from OCD does not mean I have to spend time with it. It does not mean I have to take it seriously. It is something that is never going to come true. It always lies to you. So engaging in life is going to be what really makes OCD wrong. Don't question if you're real or not. Just accept that you don't need to know. Because deep down, when you're in a clear mind state, that everything is real, right? It's only when you're triggered is when we start to get into that kind of fantasy world that things cannot be real. And the more you try to figure it out, the more doubt that comes up, the more disconnected, and the cycle continues. So hopefully that answers the question. Oh no, I was scrolling down too much and it set me back. I have to figure that out. So if I start to scroll down, it just takes me all the way back to the bottom and it takes me away from the spot that I was at. Okay, cool. I found my spot again. So here it is. So Linda Cohen at 12:32 says, my OCD is so bad. I moved into a new apartment and can't get out of bed, but I have set in my new place and take care of my 10-year-old daughter. I'll do an exposure and sit on my couch today, but I'm scared to death. I want to get better. How many exposures do I need to do each day? So the way that I like to look about it, Linda, is versus thinking of it as like exposures and check marking off, which is fine if that kind of helps you mentally. What I find helps more people is, okay, you're in your apartment and it sounds like you only feel like your bed is safe, but you're recognizing that you have a 10-year-old and because of her, you really want to engage in different parts of the apartment. What I would say is, like, as much time as you could spend on your couch, the better. Because remember, your rational brain is going to be looking and taking notes. And if it sees you on the couch hanging out, it's going to start saying, oh, I know we used to think the couch was dangerous, but I guess the couch isn't dangerous anymore. So what that would look like for you, Linda, is like spend some time out there and do something you love. Like you and your daughter, like set something cool up, like Legos on the couch, and like hang out and engage in that. And when OCD is telling you something bad is happening, ask yourself, is something bad happening in this moment? I'm doing Legos with my daughter. I'm laughing. I'm having a good time. I'm still breathing. I'm still here. Nothing bad is happening. Another one of OCD lies. Because being in the present, OCD can't affect you. It always kind of makes you freak out about something in the past that could happen, or it makes you freak out that something will happen. But in that moment, nothing's wrong. What OCD tries to get us to do is to engage in the now about a fear that may happen in the future. So what we want to do in this situation, Linda, is like start on the couch. Let's say you're getting a little bit overwhelmed and you feel like it's a good amount. Go back in your room, spend some time, kind of regroup, and then go back out on the couch. So there isn't a right or wrong amount of time, but think of it like that. And then you can start to think other parts of your apartment. Kitchen, I want to spend time in there cooking. Bathroom, I need to go use a bathroom. Like start to use that. I would say like you want to make your day look like the life that you want to live. So if your goal is to spend time outside of your bed, if 80% of your day you're in bed, that's not the OCD life. That's an OCD lifestyle. If you're spending a majority of your time in different parts of the room, then that or apartment, that's definitely more of a lifestyle that you definitely want to live. So I see a lot of people writing some really good things. Somebody complimented me. Thank you, Nikki. She said I explained things well. I see a lot of people offering support to each other, which warms my heart. I always love that people are supporting each other. At 12:40, the bee's knees says, "What's the best way to not give in to the compulsion of confessing? I have tools to work through them, but it's so hard not to confess." So just for everybody to know, confession and reassurance seeking is different. And thank you for joining us on Twitch, by the way. So reassurance is saying something to someone, hoping to get a response. Whereas confessing is simply just getting it off your chest. Typically, like a lot of times people will have confessing when they have like taboo thoughts to somebody they trust. Oh, I just had a thought about hitting that kid. And it's not that they even want a response. It's more so like, oh, I just got it off my chest. So it's kind of like wanting to dump it on people. So one thing that I think really is helpful, Bee's Knees, is that we don't realize how many times we confess. We think, oh, if I guessed it'd be 5 or 6, and you ask a family member and they're like, no, it's more like 40 or 50. So I would say, first of all, keep track, because sometimes it's like, whoa, I'm doing it like 50 times a day and I thought it was 5. So I was kind of excusing it. But now that I look at it, it is way more than I thought. So that's a start. Second of all, the people you're confessing to, have them be aware of why confessing isn't helpful and let them know that you're doing it. So when they start to hear the confession, they can say, stop, this sounds like an OCD confession, and it gives you an opportunity of awareness and to stop it. Third thing is try to reduce. And then fourth thing, delay, 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 delay. So if you're wanting to go down to the kitchen and confess to somebody you live with, ask yourself, you know what? I'm not going to go down and talk to them right now. I'm going to wait about an hour. The majority of clients will come back and say that they either forget or their anxiety is so low that they don't feel the urge to confess. Captain Cass asks how to access the virtual conference. Skyla will put that in the chat so that you know how to access the conference. Emmy at 1242 says, I've helped tremendously by Zoloft for BDD, but I haven't added CBT. Emmy, I would strongly suggest that you work with a specialist in BDD therapy. Make sure they know BDD, not just that they know how to treat OCD and imagine it's the same. Somebody who really knows BDD. The medication is going to help, but I'm telling you, the behavioral treatment, the cognitive, there's a lot more cognitive components in BDD as well. That's going to be really the thing that's going to change your lifestyle. So if you can, if you're still seeing some stuff, definitely please do that. Charles McCoy says at 12:43 that they suffer from compulsive staring, and sometimes people ask me if you're on drugs. Nobody asked me that when I used to do it, Charles, but when I used to do it, people used to ask me like, are you okay? I used to get that all the time, and then I was embarrassed. What I did, this would be the best thing that I'd say, is you kind of, oh, sorry, I was just lost in thought. No, I'm okay. Thank you for asking, and keep it at that. I can't tell you you're not going to feel uncomfortable or embarrassed, but I always think of feelings and emotions as temporary experiences, and it will too pass. But I used to just tell people like, no, I'm okay. Sorry, I was just lost in thought. That kind of helped. Okay, so here's the part where I feel like the worst person on the planet because I didn't get to everybody's questions. Emmy says that there's no BDD specialists in Belgium. Email the IOCDF info@iocdf.org. And the reason for that, Emmy, is sometimes we have global partners that could potentially help. All Eyes on P and Linda said some sweet things, so thank you so much. Katie as well. Yvonne says that she likes listening to the streams. Well, Yvonne, I like you being at the streams. And Naman says that they found someone who had common symptoms as you. Good, you're not alone at all. Okay. If you could do this, Skyla, because I'm going to feel guilty. Naman asked a great question at 12:56. If you could save that. And then also, let's see if there's any other questions. Yes, Leanne asked one at 12:52. So there's a lot of good questions that I didn't get to. Once again, I feel really bad. And then Kylie asked another good question at 12:46. And then the Bee's Knee said their name's Chris. Okay, I didn't mean to insult Chris, just me, Chris. Katie, so there's a couple good questions that I didn't get to. I think I didn't get to Elise's question about hoarding and beyond. So Skyla, if you could save those. If you asked a question at 12:43 or after, I didn't get to it and it's 10 o'clock and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of everybody's time. What we do is if we don't get to a question, Skyla puts it on our question list at the very top. So we make sure to get to it. So if I didn't answer your question, we'll definitely make sure to get to it next time. I apologize. It's easier to get to all the questions with Liz because we can go back and forth on them. So hopefully you'll forgive me. But if you asked a question 12:43 or after, we will put it on our list and we'll definitely get to it next time. Skyla is amazing as those things. She already told me that she had them. So I'm so sorry that I didn't get to them, but I promise we'll get to them next time. Just to let you know the schedule. So we're not going to have a live stream next Wednesday, July 6th, because all of us are going to be in Colorado for the conference. So we won't be back here next Wednesday, which breaks my heart because I always like seeing you all. So we won't be here next Wednesday. On the 13th of July, I won't be here and Liz won't be here. It'll actually be Kyle and Dr. Abramowitz. They're going to talk about ICBT. It's a type of OCD treatment that focuses more on cognitions that can be used in adjunct with ERP as well. They're going to be talking about the research on that Wednesday, July 13th. But then Liz and I will be back July 20th for an Ask the Experts. So if we didn't get to your question, we'll definitely get to it at that live stream. So please come back, support us. We will definitely get those questions answered as well. So I apologize if I didn't get your question, but we'll get those. A couple last announcements. There will be no live streams July 1st to the 11th due to the conference, but we'll be back Tuesday, July 12th for community conversations. We also want to recognize that we'll be back on July 17th with all the national and lead advocates. We'll do a conference kind of wrap up. You can see all, the best thing to do is go to iocdf.org/peace of mind to see the entire schedule so you know what is happening, what isn't happening. Access past live streams at youtube.com/iocdf. And if you need any resources, please go to iocdf.org. I hope to see a lot of you at the conference. I will have a haircut by then, so it doesn't look like I have Justin Bieber hair, so I'll definitely see it. I hope to see everybody there or at the virtual conference. And Betsy just said something sweet, so thank you so much. I really appreciate this community. You are all amazing. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Remember, you can get better from OCD. Go to iocdf.org for resources, and I will see you soon on a live stream. Thank you so much, everybody, for being great and opening up, and I hope that I was helpful today. Thank you, everyone. Take care, and it's good seeing you all. Have a great rest of your day.